we'll be here to midnight. We're going to give you an overview, a helicopter view of Resolve 9. And if you want to know more about how to use Resolve 9 effectively and efficiently, then Mr. Balis runs some training sessions, and he'll talk about those at the end. You need to come along to those.
So I wanted to give you an overview of the new interface, which, to be honest, if you know Resolve 8, it's going to take you 45 minutes to get used to the new interface, but it's just been made to be a lot, I'd say, friendlier. And there are certain things that just make life easier for the colorist. But we're also going to go over some new features that are really important for editorial, because as Neil just got done saying, you know, this is now an on-set piece, and even if we don't have, you know, a final, even if we're not in final color, we're just doing on-set dailies, and we're just trying to get in the ballpark, and we don't have an external calibrated monitor. I'll show you how even just the new interface just kind of makes that a little easier, and some of the new capabilities of Resolve 9 that do relate to things that weren't even remotely there before. So I just want to start really quickly with, they did consolidate a lot of what was spread out across multiple different pages in Resolve 8. There's now basically just 5 different pages. Starting with the media page, this is basically just where we look for media and inspect media that we're going to be bringing into Resolve. One of the nice things, they did add a little thumbnail view, even though most of the time just dealing with massive amounts of media that we're going to be in an, you know, in a list type view. Icon view is nice. They did make these icons scrubbable, although they're not, yeah, there's not a lot of movement going on in a few of these shots. You can very quickly get information. There's a lot of metadata that's now available that not only you can view about your clips, but a lot of metadata entry that you can do. Very cool. Conform. Now, normally the Conform page is about where we're going to bring in a project from Avid or Final Cut and make sure.
And Premiere, of course.
And, you know, yeah, of course.
I mean, is Larry Jordan in the room?
Premiere.
He can give us a hint on Premiere?
Final Cut 10, sure, you could actually bring in an edit from Final Cut 10. I've yet to see that happen yet, but it's doable. So here's where we're going to put basically, you know, our program together. I've loaded up an offline edit version of this project. The version on the right is the colored version. This is a 1880s horror ghost story, so it's very dark, moody film. Not exactly great for this projector, which is kind of a little on the dark side already. But so here's the Conform pages where we're basically checking and making sure it's all correct. Now, the color page I'm going to come back to, but the color page is where we do all of our work. And they've really consolidated a lot of features as well as added new features. I'll come back to this one in a minute. The gallery page is basically where you store various reference stills of shots that you've already graded that you now want to reference while you're grading other shots. But it's also a warehouse of looks that you've created, either in the current project or in other projects. Blackmagic has included some preset looks that you could also use as a starting point as well. And then really, I know it's not the sexiest of features, but where we're really going to spend the most amount of time tonight is actually talking about the new page called Deliver. Used to need to kind of figure out how to render because it wasn't really available as a page. It was kind of a hidden option. It was in a menu or you knew the keyboard shortcut. But rendering has dramatically changed, and it really affects the fact that now when Neil tells me I've got to do this and that, I don't need to remote log in at midnight and render my next reel because the capabilities have dramatically changed as to, you know, what you can actually render, multiple deliverables, multiple jobs, multiple different batches of whatever it is that you need to get out the door.
And you can actually even do that from the bar we're in. I've heard, Andrew, is that right? You just use your iPhone and remote in?
I will try that next.
Good.
Now, the color page is kind of the main workspace. So if you haven't, and by the way, the lights are down except for this bright one that's in my face, so I can't really see much out there. But
they're all asleep, don't worry.
I'm curious, how many people kind of are already somewhat familiar, they've seen enough demos, they kind of know what the Resolve interface is about?
Okay, 2 people. Okay, that's
2 people? Good. Okay, yeah. There we go. So now in the upper left corner is a little preview window, which, you know, for when you're doing final finishing, this preview window isn't very important because you're looking at your external calibrated monitor. So I'll actually show you how in the new version you can actually get rid of that if you don't want it. But there is a preview window that we can use for various purposes. There's a mini gallery where we can bring up the various stills that we've graded throughout our timeline. New to Resolve 9, because I don't know about you, but I need reading glasses, and trying to figure out what, when looking at hundreds of shots, trying to figure out which still was the one I was trying to reference was kind of challenging. And now at least, they've made it very friendly, just everything and a lot of different pages, resizable icons. I mean, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, very quick and easy. You even have something like the ability to create multiple different pages of stills so that you can really categorize things however you want. There's our workspace over here. This is called the node graph. Now, in earlier versions of DaVinci, basically, well, this hasn't changed actually, but each of these little boxes is a node. And each of these nodes are a different layer of color correction. They could be just primary color correction. They could be a window that you're using to shape, remold, the lighting of the scene. It could be a key of a particular color. But you'll notice in the new version, you can actually name your nodes, which is really cool because I know, right? I'm serious. It's amazing. One of the things is you often do need to go back and revisit a shot.
No, I can't believe that.
Yeah,
really?
It happens.
You have directors who change their mind? No, I've never heard of that one.
No,
editors who want to
recut.
recut?
Never the editor.
No.
It's potentially somebody else in the room, but the client. But just trying to remember potentially on an effect where you did have 4, 5, 6, 10 nodes on a shot, to be able to just very quickly at a glance be able to see it, as well as, you can see I labeled one here, client change, right? So if I was to add a new node, it's like I could very quickly just say, well, this was, client change 2. Not only for reference, but I might be using these nodes as a starting point for other shots. I might be borrowing pieces of corrections for other shots. So just knowing what I did very quickly is pretty helpful. You'll also notice actually something that's new to Resolve 9 are these little blue flags, which you can actually do flags of any color, but basically I can add whatever color flag I want, which is just a reminder of certain things. If I need to go back and revisit a certain shot in the timeline or for rendering purposes, which I'll come back to, really nice to just very quickly have a visual icon that represents.
Actually, Andrew, there's a question here. Yeah. So,
can I ask questions now or wait till you go through the whole
well, it depends what the question is. You ask the question and I'll let you know if we'll answer it. Yeah.
Let's say you're in a session with a client and you go, yeah, I like that shot, but can you make it darker or whatever? He has an idea. Can you go in and type in that idea and then come back to it? Like a notes?
Well, I think we'll answer that one.
No, you can't do that. That would be cool, right? So if anybody's listening from Blackmagic, we can throw that out there. It is still in beta, so who knows if they're still listening potentially. What's that?
So you can just put a color dot, but you don't know what the dot is for?
Well, you could basically say, well, blue stands for this, yellow stands for that, red stands for that. So no, you don't have a name for the flag. Hey, I didn't write this, but I think there's some pretty cool features. So don't bang on the messenger here. Exactly. Now, I want to work through the interface a little bit more. Now, in the bottom left corner is basically where you do all your work. You have different displays, but they also have different functionality. Now, normally, if a colorist is going to be connected to a control surface, which controls all these things, we brought with us just a piece of a tangent element. Has anybody heard of the tangent element?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Awesome. It's so awesome. This is actually one of just 4 modular pieces that fit together. And what's nice is I can just use one. So if I am in a portable situation like we are, grading something on set or near set, and we don't want a full setup, that I just brought with me the only piece I needed for tonight, which is awesome. So I have that, and it controls everything. Now, so this is where we do most of our work, but this area right in here is where they've really consolidated everything, so you just didn't have to jump around the interface so much. Now you have curve controls if you need them available right here, but you have all these different buttons that basically take you to different pages. Like this page would be for doing qualifiers, in other words, keying a particular color that you wanted to change, or maybe change everything but that color, where you add windows to manipulate parts of a shot. You have, they've consolidated where you do all your resizing also on this page. And a brand new feature, which also goes along with why we're kind of doing this as a mobile setup, the whole idea of doing dailies on set, near set, is that you also now have a data burn-in section. So we'll come back to that. Yeah, right? I'm telling you, it's
too cool.
Stuff.
How many times has a producer said we need one thing for editorial and one thing for the producers and one thing for the DVD? This now means you can do all that kind of stuff in Resolve instead of having to, you know, go back out into Avid or FCP.
Now on the right side, the bottom right corner down here is where you would do animated effects. So if you needed an effect to change over time, because I am on a somewhat small workspace, it is a little smaller than I would normally have if I'm on a large monitor. But one of the nice things that Blackmagic did in the new version is they allowed you to really quickly be able to kind of change your workspace. So if I really want to expand my node graph, if I really, now this was also here, by the way, in earlier versions, you could always kind of resize things like this, but the ability to just very quickly say, hey, look, you know, I don't need this preview monitor. Let's just get rid of it. I just need my gallery, I need my workspace. I don't need that other stuff. Now the timeline itself also has bigger thumbnails. There's displays that we don't have time to get into very much that have changed. But
Andrew, one of the things I've often found when I'm trying to use this Resolve is I've got a timeline 20 minutes long with 6 million clips in it. I can never find the right freaking clip.
I know,
It
right?
used to drive me bonkers going left and right and up and down and inside out. There must be an easier way.
I know. You were reading my mind, because I was just about to say, you know, there are times when I do need to go back and scrolling through this long horizontal timeline could sometimes take you some time. You got a couple hundred shots. I do like, this is really cool. At first I thought it was kind of gimmicky, and I'm like, no, this really rocks. Jump to any part of my timeline, find a shot, go back to the color page, and be wherever I need to. As you can see also when you're on this page, you do see references to time code, because you do generally know where something might be in a particular timeline that you're looking for, so you can get an idea where.
Do editors still use time code?
Thumbnails, I
thought in FCPX we did away with time code. We don't need it anymore.
No, tracks they got rid of, not the timeline. That's a slightly different thing.
Group in that window?
You cannot, no. Why are you asking for the things I
But you can group somewhere else. Isn't that right, Andrew?
You can actually group shots, but let's get back to some other stuff.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
You can bring up some various information from this little button here. Like, for example, these colored indicators represent that that shot was graded, that there is some color correction on it. You have shot numbers, so you can reference those things if you need as well. Now, what I do want to do, though, where I really want to spend the most amount of time, though, is I do want to, oh, this is, isn't she pretty? Tell me, that is not gorgeous, right?
Is that your daughter?
That's not my daughter.
Oh, okay.
But this film actually comes from a short film that I recently graded called Dreadful Sorry, photographed by Dan Neese. So I did want to point him out, because he's a great cinematographer. But I do actually want to jump out of this project, and let's talk about what really is new in Resolve, which is dailies. And we don't have a lot of time, but I just want to really quickly run you through some of the new features.
How many editors in the room have ever had to do dailies, i.e. sync audio and video and apply a log to LinLut? Not everybody. That's interesting.
And that actually brings up, another point, which is, why don't we just do this in Avid or Final Cut 7 or Premiere Pro? Why isn't,
FCPX.
We are about to talk about that we can sync audio, but okay, so can a lot of applications. But the problem is we can't load up a LUT in Avid. We can't, well, without plugins, we can't load up a LUT in Final Cut 7. We need to be able to apply looks from set, whether that's in the form of a LUT, ASC CDL information, whether it's even in the form of actually DaVinci Resolve grades. We need to be able to load that up. We also separately need to be able to modify source information from things like Red or Sony f65 or the new Blackmagic camera. So we need to be able to do those things while we're generating our media for editorial, or else everybody's looking at this washed out ugly mess for the next 3 months. So now this is the new project window, which is nice because projects are scrubbable, so you can very quickly tell what's in them. I'm just going to very quickly create a new project and jump into it and start the process of syncing. I know that sounds like a fun thing to watch. Let's watch rendering for an hour. No, we won't do that.
It really is fascinating, I can assure you.
It really is fascinating. So one of the, here's, as we go along, we'll just keep seeing new things. You used to need to designate directories in advance. It's like, oh, I'm bringing in media for this from this drive. Too bad, go to the preferences, set that directory, quit Resolve, come back, then you can use that directory. That's all gone. Even though you can preset directories, you can always access anything you need very quickly. So let's say, for example, I'm going to create a new bin for picture. And I'm going to find some red media, some red epic media. And I'm going to bring that in on our media page.
But I thought Dailies, we had audio, the whole point of Dailies, you're supposed to have audio as well. Don't tell me that Resolve 9 actually handles audio as well now.
I think it does.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm going to create a bin for audio and bring my audio in as well. Now, before we actually, I will show you a little bit about syncing here, but then I'm going to go into another project where I've kind of already got things set up. Now, just the fact that normally you're not starting a project from scratch in DaVinci. Normally, again, you are taking a project that was from another NLE and you're conforming it here. But this is a case where you just start the project from scratch here. Now, just by the fact that you added media into what's called the media pool, when I go to the next page, Conform, it's already started what's referred to as the master timeline. So it's already created a timeline of all the shots that I added. Now, I'm just going to
I don't see any audio in there. Where's the audio?
Well, it's not there quite yet.
Oh.
But I am going to create a new working timeline. And what's really interesting is, well, not really interesting. I mean,
no, fascinating.
Really interesting.
Yeah, super really. Yep.
If I wanted to, there are two different ways that we could work. I mean, I could always manually sync, find the clapper on the slate, which I'm not even remotely going to attempt doing in this short amount of time. I can't even find the slate that fast. Oh, there it was. Oh, it just went by. Well, you forget it. But we could separately load up audio into a source monitor. We could find where the slate hits. We could manually line up picture to audio and sync clips individually. But one of the nice new things that's available on other Daily systems as well, but this is DaVinci Resolve. This is a nice, great new feature. I'm literally just going to tell on this particular timeline to link all the audio. If it finds matching time code, all those shots have now been sunk with multi-channel audio. We do not have audio connected, so you'll just have to take my word for it when you see these meters bouncing up and down. There's actually audio attached to these clips right now.
So you're telling me, with the press of 2 buttons, you have sunk 4 hours worth of dailies?
That's right.
Why are we paying so much money? That's what I want to know.
Well, you just won't tell your client that.
Okay.
The subtlety on that, did you mention that it's only if you've got matching time code?
Yeah, so if you don't have matching time code, which, is going to be the way generally most professionally shot, features at least, or television is going to be done, you will have WAV files that will have a lot of metadata, including time code, hopefully that matches picture. So if it's wrong, you can always go to a particular shot and then you can change it by manually syncing that shot. Those are basically your 2 options. There's no way to basically slip the sync of an individual shot right now, at least not as it stands right now, but it's a brand new feature. Now, one of the things they've also moved to this, to the color page, which I really like, is that here we've got red epic footage, which is, a raw-based format. And I could overall go to a settings page where I can change overall project settings for how that raw footage is interpreted. But you often need to change things for individual groups of shots, whether it's a scene, whether it's just everything, you know, looking in one direction, you know, one particular shot. So for example, let's say I
Andrew, can we do grouping?
Well,
oh, we can do grouping.
We can select a group of shots, and we do now have raw settings available for either Red, Arri Raw, F65, as well as Blackmagic's new camera right here.
What about the Canon 7D? You know, I shoot all my features on the Canon 7D.
Well, you're out of luck for raw settings there,
oh,
but
no.
we have other things. So
DPX can handle Canon 7.
So let's say, for example, instead of treating it the way the footage was shot, maybe I'm actually preparing for final grading, and instead of, let's say, using red color 3 and red gamma 3, maybe I want to change it to, let's say clip settings. Maybe I want to change it to, let's say, red log, because I want to work in this environment. In our case, I wouldn't, but if I did want to do that, I could say, you know, only apply these changes that you made to this group of shots. So I don't wipe out everything else that was important to these other shots, because they could have different ISO settings, different exposure settings. So we don't want to globally just wipe everything out, but I want to make one change and ripple that to other shots, and it's very easy to do that. Now I'm going to actually change that back and ripple that again. And now, if we are on set, and we don't have an external calibrated monitor, but we did need a color correct. I mean, I don't know, you're looking at a projector, so at least that preview image isn't too small, but this is a little tiny screen for me. Now I can make it a little bigger, you know, and this would be helpful for other things as well, including sizing. But there is also a feature that's kind of familiar to Final Cut 7 editors as well, and I think it's in Final Cut 10, but the ability to just quickly go full screen into the application. So
yeah, but now you can't do any of the controls, can you?
But I can.
Oh, no, you can?
So, for example, now this shot actually looks pretty damn good right out of the camera, but we'll just make a change to it. Let's say we wanted to make it a little bit more silhouette-y, let's say. Maybe cool it off a little bit. And I actually have to look up there because this looks completely different than what's up there based on the projector. So grading with my head turned around the other side.
But Michael is going to get us a new projector.
Hopefully.
Really?
Definitely.
Now what's nice is you don't actually need to leave the full screen mode. I could literally just move from shot to shot and continue to grade and then only leave that mode when I want to. So that's pretty cool. And then let's say, for example, I save that correction. Oh, I forgot to reapply those other settings before. So
I thought you were grouping things.
Well, I'm not grouping. I'm simply just selecting. But there is a cool new feature in Resolve 9 that found actually just by accident. But if I save a particular grade, because we talked about these being saved stills, but they also actually house your corrections. Anything that you've done to a shot is saved with that still as well. Now that's always been the case, but what is nice is that I can select a group of shots and very quickly apply that correction to a group of shots. That's something that's new to Resolve 9. Now,
so if you have a whole bunch of shots shot outside or interior, dark, exterior.
yeah, so it's really helpful for dailies when you've got 8 takes of a shot and it was in a controlled lighting environment, so you do need that same correction. Boom, you just very quickly applied it to all those shots.
Amazing.
Now, I do want to really spend, because I know we've been on for a while, I really do want to spend the most amount of time just talking about getting it out. But before that, let's say we did need to do a couple extra things. For example, now we're looking at it pretty much as 16 by 9 right now, but they shot it as 235. So we want to be able to add a 235 mask quickly. We need to be able to add burn-ins. Let's say, for example, let's say we need source time code, and I'm going to move that over and down a little bit. And let's say we also needed some custom information, like there's custom text.
Michael's
property
movie
of whoever.
This is a porno, is it?
And so you know, these are obviously really crucial things, but, you know, editorial often needs different things. You might want a burn-in throughout the entire course of the shots, but you also might want what's referred to as a flash burn, where the burn-in is only at the beginning of the shot or the end of the shot, or both, for a certain amount of frames. So you do have that option here. So I could say, you know, just have this burn-in on the first 10 frames. So now it's only in the first 10 frames, and maybe I also want it at the end, so I could do that as well. So that's pretty cool. It's really giving us all the things that we need out of edit for editorial. Now on the deliver page, what really, you know, whether you're doing dailies, whether you're doing final finishing, I have to just show it to explain it. Now, first off, you could always render an individual shot. I could say, you know what, I just want to render this one shot. I want to render a range. I could mark an in and out point. But one of the things that's cool, I've got this little button down here. It's also available on the color page, which allows me to filter what I'm seeing. And I could then create a job to render that's based on only what I'm seeing. So for example, I could say, well, only show me what I've color corrected. Only show me, you know, shots that have been flagged. Only show me flagged that are just blue flags or cyan flags or whatever. Now, that is incredibly helpful on its own, as well as this is my favorite part of it. And again, it's available here on the deliver page as well as on the color page, is I might render a reel on it, because, you know, a lot of times we might be under, you know, a deadline where we've got to get the render process going, even though we haven't finished, you know, a particular reel for a film yet. But the next day we know we are still going to work on some shots in that reel again. But we have no idea how to flag which those shots were that had been modified since we last colored. Now there's this option, show only clips that have been modified in X amount of time. Awesome. So I can say, just show me the clips I've modified in the last 24 hours, 6 hours, 1 hour, and then that's what I see, that's what I render. And not only that, what's also cool is you can now very quickly set up different jobs with multiple deliverables. So for example, let's say I am rendering dailies for Final Cut Pro 7. Maybe I want to do them as ProRes Lite. I'm going to render audio. I'm going to render that burn-in. And let's see, I think that's, oh, actually there is a really cool feature here. When you're doing final finishing, force debear to highest quality. Now, if you're working with raw-based footage and it needs to be demosaiced or debared, it's a very time-consuming process. If you're working with red and you have a red rocket card, you can debear in real time. But if you don't, it's a very time-consuming process. So you often, like just for me to be able to play back in here and have decent playback quality, I've set that debear quality pretty low. So I might set it low while I'm working, but want to get it back up to the highest quality before I render. There's a nice new little checkbox that says, make sure you force debear res to highest quality. So if you save this preset, you work at a lower quality, you don't end up having to accidentally render at a lower quality and then have to come back again and render at a higher quality. You're always going to either force sizing to highest quality or force debear quality to highest quality. Now, so I've created this particular job. I'm going to render ProRes Lite, for example.
But Andrew, I need something for my, I've got a new Retina display iPad 3. It's the latest and greatest.
Before we get to that one, because that, yeah, okay.
You are going to give me some iPad dailies, I hope.
Well, yeah, I could.
It's pretty important for me. I'm a producer, and I have an iPad 3. It's really important, okay?
Well, we do have the ability, let's say within this just one job, I could create an additional output. Now, if I wanted that output to be based on things that were to some degree fairly similar to the, you know, to other properties of the job, then I would do it as an additional output. Like if I wanted it as the same frame size, for example. But I'm just going to add this as its own job. And actually, let me just make sure that's going into a new folder. And again, this is also an area where you used to have to pre-designate certain locations before you could say, well, I just want to render. Oh, you mean I've got to set this location, quit DaVinci, come back in, and then start rendering. Now I can just pick locations very quickly. Now I'm going to add this job, so I've got that job queued up, and now I'm going to choose something else. I'm going to say, well, I want to do an H.264 for my iPad dailies.
iPad 3.
I want to make it 720p, and this one I don't want to have the burn-in, and then I add that as another job. We'll send that to a different location. So I've added that just. So I've got these two jobs set up, but you know, that was cool enough. to me, to be able to create multiple jobs, multiple deliverables. But the fact that I mentioned I don't have to remote in at midnight anymore is because I can also very quickly say, show all projects that have jobs in place. And literally, I can just start the render process, and it opens up the other job, renders it, closes it out, then opens up whatever job needs to be rendered next. It's a pretty cool feature. So it really is set it and forget it, you know, to quote.
So if you're Michael
Brookfield.
Horton, you could do your editing till 8 o'clock, set those projects there, nip down the pub, have a few bevies, come back 12ish and finish off. Is that right?
That's right.
That sounds like it, yeah. So pretty cool feature. This is really the area of Resolve where I'm kind of, you know, thrilled about the changes they've made. It just makes it a lot easier to get my job done efficiently, definitely.
So we've seen the overview, right? We've seen the GUI. It's a much more refined, much easier to use. We've seen how to get stuff in, we've seen how to get stuff out, and we've seen now the new powerful tools in the color page. Is there anything else that we need to show these editors about this wonderful new project, this product?
Is there? I have to look on my iPad. I don't remember.
Oh, have you got an iPad 3 as well? You don't? Oh, okay. No, he's a colorist.
I'm good, actually.